inaccurate before I say it's correct.
We're gonna announce it just
And there's more, but
Entry block, yes. Yes. And
internal IDs, content. That's all that we really care about. There's other stuff hanging about, but none of it matters to you as the user. And that's the angle I'm coming at. The notes and bullets. This is how I put data in, I pull data out. I search through the thing. If that's what you're doing, I can ask you questions.
okay.
And this one's only open because it has a Factom tag on it. I'm halfway through switching.
Oh, you got a new laptop then?
Yeah, it's just, it'll hold 16 gigabytes, so I can actually run a virtual machine if I want to.
Yeah, nice things like that, yeah.
So, and that was it. This is it was pretty close to my one that had my daughter spilled a drink into, so I grabbed the hard drive. But the memory was destroyed in that one too. I couldn't grab the 8 gigs of memory and put it in this one because it was whatever happened with that water. So, and it was one of the things where it wasn't a water got in and it got flaky or I turned it off or whatever. It was water hit it, gone.
Interesting.
So, yeah.
But IBMs were better at that.
It's a Dell, but I thought Dells were better than that too. Or actually, no, it is an IBM. So yeah, and maybe it was just a sheer.
What kind of water was it?
Water, but it was a decently
Like-
big glass.
Hmm?
Decently big.
Like
tap.
tap water? Okay.
Enough to really conduct. Anyway, it was not distilled. Yeah. So noon is when we're supposed to do it. Is he announcing it?
I believe so.
Right. Don't know if anybody will come over.
Well,
Do we know if anybody's using Factom? I know Joey is theoretically
talking about it.
He's talking theoretically about using it, but I don't know that he's going to produce any code this weekend. He's specking out the whole thing. So
Just doing the design?
pseudocode, sort of. This would be an awesome place for a drone.
Yeah. Well, maybe. Like it. Yeah, you're right. It would be.
Air currents.
So one of these, have you seen the flying machine from Festo? They're like a jellyfish that is like 10 feet wide. They've got
Kind of like the sharks or the other stuff. They're the big inflatable things. With
well, it's along those lines, but it's not stupid. But yeah, they've got like the octopus. They've got like a flying penguin type thing, and it actually looks like a penguin swimming through the water, but it's actually in the air, and those would be awesome.
They also need plants up against that window.
This one?
Doesn't that need a aquaculture, aeroponics, hydroponics sort of stuff? Just
Well, if they wanted it to be super humid in here.
I'm also curious how hot it is on the other side of this glass.
Well, I mean, it is glass, so you
They have glass that doesn't conduct very well. But I'm assuming that it's not nearly as comfortable up here as it is down there at the bottom floor.
well, this looks like single pane.
This is where I found out.
But there's no vents or anything up there. Hey, somebody showed up.
Yes.
Were you here Wednesday?
I was not.
It'll be similar. Brian's gonna take a very high level, but on a day-to-day basis, I actually put data into our blockchain and pull it out and search it and things like that, so I'm taking the nuts and bolts sort of questions. So how it's set up as a user level, you don't really care about the admin blocks and the consensus and all that stuff, you just care how to necessarily put stuff in, find it, pull it back out, do your stuff with it.
Yeah.
I'm ignoring everything that's not that.
Okay.
And Brian's also, I suppose, presenting. I was surprised to see my name on the event list.
I haven't really used blockchain or any of this stuff beforehand. I've read like one white paper or 2 white papers before. That was it. So I just downloaded Factom.
Is it working?
I haven't tried actually.
Actually, you just downloaded it?
Yeah.
Then you are gonna need something I can go through. You wanna run a local sandbox instead of running production.
Okay.
It's faster, so you don't have to wait 10 minutes for your stuff to show up. But also, you can have testimony.
Okay. So, do I need to download Nox?
No, you just need to download go to search GitHub for Factom Docs.
You already made it up.
Actually, go to Factom.com. Go to developers and top how-tos. You've already installed it, so you don't do much of this, but there is a link to a configuration document. Wednesday is the first time it's on this page. Problem is, I know where one is, but it's lost its slides. And you installed the binaries, right? Or you downloaded the binaries and ran it and installed.
I've downloaded the download file that I ran that. Yes. Okay.
I'm going to actually go back to,
Okay.
binary install.
Okay.
That page. Now, see if there's a configuration. Search for configuration.
I'll just go through each one, just Control F. I don't think that would happen. It's not these ones.
Okay, yeah.
Like development guys, maybe.
That would definitely help. Search for configuration. Or if you go to DOS prompt, you can make one to rename to correct. Windows is like a period. If you run, go ahead and run Factom real quick, and that can be. It'll do it.
Okay.
It created it, it's gonna start downloading the rest of the blockchain, so.
Alright.
Now go to your user. the configuration document. Back on the GitHub page, but this is where we're gonna set it.
Okay.
Yeah, that's it.
That's a text file.
Activity, that's the Okay, a couple changes you want to make. I'm not sure if they're in here by default. Full right there, change up to server. Okay. Now, if you want a persistent database, persistent blockchain here, it's probably just for testing. You don't want one that starts over every time. Directory block in seconds means you have a 1 minute block time.
Okay.
That can go down to 6. That will be problems. Or if you put an entry in, it's not going to show up until it's published in block.
Okay.
Production is 10 minutes. But a minute works, seconds works. So give you the finish work.
Right.
Transact or exchange rate. Set that to something small.
Well, I guess everyone was satisfied with the presentation last Wednesday, or their, does it?
Did you recognize any familiar faces?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
There should be people.
I did not get to attend on the last Wednesdays.
Okay. I guess it's just gonna be you then. So let me,
I'm the one left behind.
so what do you want to get out of this?
Oh,
So-
I really need to set up my development environment.
Okay. Well, why don't we, sure, okay, we can do that. So, if you go to,
Okay.
Ticket Hub,
That's a server.
and then,
All right.
first, this is Windows or?
Yes, Windows 10.
Okay.
All right.
So actually, Factom.com,
Okay.
Back on the sandbox page.
and then, up at the top here, we've got developers, and then how-to guides.
You'll never have to mess with that. If you ever wanted to spawn your production, just.
And we haven't jumped through all the hoops for the binary signing.
Oh, there's developers. Okay. And then developers and,
How-to guides.
oh, yeah, okay. Oh, there's the term that I was wondering, factoids.
Yeah. I can, you won't need to worry about that for this demo, because that's all taken care of. That's basically the anti-spam mechanism for the network. But for this, for development, you should probably just run your own local server. And you don't need to worry about network craziness or things like that. And that basically draws away the
I appreciate that. I just heard the factoids being thrown around and I'm like, what is it, what is it? It's like-
So, then that brings you to the repo called distribution. Are you, what are you trying to get out of this, this intro session?
Yeah, this is my,
But I have like a.
yeah, I'm trying to understand the Factom platform, and how it works.
When you
Then
install it, you
that
have
will
3
help
before
me
you install.
to
One
use it.
was
and project and
Yes.
use cases.
Okay, and you're doing the hackathon part where it's the design and not the actual implementation? Or are you
No,
doing
we
the
are going
actual-
to implement
Running
it,
something on the phone.
but I'm not sure what the team will decide on at the end of the day. They are looking at Hyperledger.
Okay.
And I think for a supply chain use case, but I think Factom should be able to do the same thing. Yes. So I just want to, even if it's not, I want to.
Cut that into batch.
Yeah, so smart contracts to me don't, smart contracts to me
Okay.
mean you have an economic
And then
incentive to bind the counterparties together.
Yes.
And so you have a bond that gets posted,
Alright.
for example. So,
Sure.
a shipper and
Alright.
someone
Should be
who's
ready to go right here. Also want to start the SEQ.
receiving the shipment. It's a good example. So, so let's say you have a smart contract, assuming that you have a shipping, you want to do something very much like cash on delivery, of the old days, where it's the shipping company which is handling the payment. Well, they don't normally provide something like that, but what they do is they provide signed receipts. If they're set up properly, they can provide signed receipts that a package was delivered.
When you see those two things, I'm probably gonna.
And so what the smart contract would do
That's what those two
is
parts are.
you,
Okay.
They're orange.
Alright, thank
part of
you.
part of the purchase process, the buyer would fund a smart contract with the exit conditions being, both the buyer and the seller agree, or the seller and the shipping company agree on the exit conditions. And so normally if something goes wrong with the shipping company, then both the buyer and seller can figure out how to parcel out the money. But normally the buyer will get the product and then forget about it, and not really care about filing payment. Well, the merchant really wants that payment to be finalized. And so they, in collaboration with a receipt from the
Before I have a procedure.
the extracting page, would be able to combine those two together to extract. So that's how you would use smart contracts, to basically lock up money, waiting for the payment. But you can also do that on Bitcoin as other products, but yeah, let me know when you get it installed.
Okay.
Is there a way after having the smart like for example, a product has moved from, let's say from the factory, for example, to, from a producer to a distributor, so it has been received, and the smart contract has been able to record that transaction to a block. Is there a way to now look, okay, it has been written, now let me notify
Sure.
the seller that it has been delivered, so that.
Right.
I mean, so
you
here's the
can
thing
see
about
that, okay,
blockchain.
where's my money?
I just can't believe
Here's the thing about
I
blockchain.
wanted to join it, but I had my kids with me all weekend long, so.
Global
Yeah,
stage.
we don't mind.
What's that?
We don't mind, it's pretty casual. You want to join?
I don't, I can't spend the whole weekend. I gotta hang out with the kids, but I was always kind of curious about, blockchain. And,
So we have like,
you know, I wanted to kind of
producer
play around with it while I
is
was,
producing an item
so,
like maybe
but,
strawberries, and then there is a.
you guys are the ones who are kind of
they will
running
take this item. I mean,
No,
we
we're
had
running-
the blockchain tech, is that what it is?
We have one of the, yes, blockchain implementations that you might want to use
shipping
for
company,
your hackathon
and then they
project.
will move
Okay.
these goods to the distributor.
And
then from the
so yes, you want to
the
play around
distributor
with
will
it, set
start
up a sandbox
taking
on
it
your
to
local
different grocery stores,
stuff, and
like
it takes
Walmart
that
and all that.
Mhm.
Okay.
A lot of the
So now,
documentation
once the good
doesn't
gets
necessarily cover
the
programmatic
producer
parts of like moving money around,
Uh-huh.
but you
to the
can.
distributor.
Is it about setting up the
Okay,
contracts and that type of thing?
He wants to
We
get his
don't have,
money
or
right.
Ethereum
So,
would be a
but
better
before
choice for
he
doing
can
smart
get
contracts.
money,
Okay.
We have some services where we're providing data to Ethereum contracts,
Mhm.
but
Yeah,
we
it's
don't have
important that
we're more of
the
a
product has been
document
delivered to the
verification,
distributor.
auditing sort of layer
Okay.
effect to this.
Now, typically once
So
that
we have
is
our own
delivered,
blockchain. If you
the
say you have a
distributor
title to your
should
property
release that cash, cash.
in an
and
electronic
delivery.
document, you
That kind
take
of
a
thing.
turn hash
Like,
is.
say, I've received my product.
Do you know what
and
the hash
have
is?
your money.
Yeah,
Okay.
I've
Now-
worked with them, yeah.
Okay, so it's just that
Once
here's
the
number
product has been
junk.
delivered,
Yeah.
I mean, anytime you
let's say
take
for
this
example,
document,
the
and you
distributor
hash
has
it, it always
paid
gets
the
same.
money.
Mhm.
Okay,
So
oh,
say,
I want
there
like
was,
a
we were doing
notification,
talking to
okay,
Honduras about.
the product has been
delivered.
delivered
So,
to the
so you get a
distributor,
poor farmer that
then
owns his property, he
immediately
has
a
this
notification
file
should go to
that's a
to the
copy of the
producer
document,
now,
it's title,
your
this is the
item
intent.
has been delivered.
It gets stuck in
to
Factom's
this
blockchain as a
distributor.
hash.
Okay, so
Government
you
official
can
comes
now
in,
say,
changes
oh,
the database, he no longer
let me go
owns
and
it.
check my account.
Well, he can go to the court system and say, what do I do
account
about
and
it?
see, okay, oh.
And
as it
So is
came
this
in,
a signaling
The
thing?
court system
Or
can
is
go
the
verify
money
that
in
document
account beforehand?
is in our document, is in our blockchain, which is outside of Honduras'
like
Okay.
cash,
control.
I mean, pay on.
There's no information other than they're just 30 slides.
Distributor, they
Verify.
to the
Yes,
producer
the
on.
piece of
Okay.
paper.
Smart contracts, the money has to be locked
Document
up
that farmer has,
Uh-huh.
Oh, okay.
is provably real.
Mhm.
And so we do documents
So this
like
is,
that.
this
You could actually, in our
this is why
system,
you
put
might
that
like
whole
Factom,
document into our
because
blockchain.
it's just a messaging.
If you wanted to. But we're
database
more of the
synchronization.
auditing,
And
document
there's the
verification,
broadcast
proof, you know.
Okay. How many parts are, if you're auditing documentation, you said it really is more smart contracts?
So the money is not there.
How many
somewhere,
pieces
so-
are in the
so it's
blockchain
not like-
and
Okay,
specific
there's not
types of
the
For the
blockchain.
distributor, there is
There are lots of blockchains.
money somewhere.
Bitcoin is the biggest,
And
it
then,
has the
so
most
once
computers making it, or
I mean,
verifying
everything
it
that's
based on it, so it is
done,
the most secure.
Then the money will be released.
What we do is every time we have an add
All the way
block
down
to
the
our
chain from
blockchain,
the consumer all the
we
way
stick a
down.
hash into Bitcoin. The same sort of thing that says, this is our real blockchain.
And so-
Nobody has
Got it.
an
All right,
identity
okay.
blockchain, nobody has
So,
adulterated what's in ours.
let's,
And you can
Uh-huh.
verify that against
first-
Bitcoin, which is super secure because there's so much programming power.
So now we
to ensure
go
that that's
to
secure.
Sorry, what's
the
this
Factom-
installation about? The installation? Well, I mean, are we supposed to follow some?
So, in order to use, the blockchain, you need to have software on your computer to access the blockchain.
So anybody can
Um,
build their own blockchain?
And so, very much like Bitcoin. Have you used Bitcoin? No? Okay. In order to use these pieces of software, these aren't like regular web protocols where you've got some server up in the cloud that's serving an API with a password and a login. The way these work is they distribute the databases across many computers. And so they use a peer-to-peer network to create a local transaction and then propagate it around to all the peers, and so that everyone has everyone's data. And that's the kind of the whole point of blockchains. And so here's the thing about the blockchain. So the different pieces of data, they're collected together and they're packaged into blocks. And then you get and they're hashed together. How many people are unfamiliar with a cryptographic hash? Okay. A cryptographic hash takes an arbitrarily large amount of data, runs a mathematical process on it to generate a 32-byte long number. The mathematics is set up such that a single bit, a single word that changes in that large document will radically change the hash. I didn't bring my example. I have a can of. I'll get a picture. Okay. So.
I've actually like used hashes before in a class. I thought you were gonna like discuss
Okay.
mathematics or something.
No. You can just understand it from. So it's a one-way data function. And so you collect all these transactions into a block, and then there's a hash of it. And then you have you collect a whole bunch of transactions in the next time period, and then also you include the hash of the previous block. And so what that means is any changes to the previous block also change the current hash. And then you just keep doing this over and over again. And so if everyone agrees on the latest block, they also implicitly agree on all of history. And not a single letter can change in all of history without being detectable. So the hard part is getting everyone to agree on that current state. But if they do, then this is where the magic is. So if everyone interprets history exactly the same way, running the same computer program, and all the data is fed in to that interpreter in the same way, then they will all come up with the same exact result, the same exact state of the system. And so blockchains are a way to get lots of different people to establish the same state of the system and agree on that.
How do you, like the timing, the timestamp, how do you get that? Where do you get that information from for the timestamp?
At what level?
You're typically creating a smart contract, how do you get the time? You know, because each block and the transaction in the block is based on time, right?
Can be.
Okay, so, I mean, what do you typically use for monitoring this time?
NTP.
Timestamp?
So it's the, how deep do we want to go with this? We could talk for hours about time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Like in India, aren't they like a half an hour off or something?
Deeper than that.
Worse than that.
Time is the problem that Bitcoin solves. Bitcoin turns electricity into time. That's one way of thinking about it. Every day, $1 million worth of electricity is burned to advance Bitcoin forward. What that means, so you guys are familiar with journaling databases? So journaling, it's supposed to be not changeable, but if you really want to, you can roll back the journal, make your change, and then roll the journal forward. With Bitcoin, it makes it thermodynamically expensive, not just socially expensive. So, for example, Git, you can rebase Git. And everyone in your team gets all up in a fuss because now they've got merge conflicts and they've got to do all kinds of crazy things. And that's socially expensive. In Bitcoin, to reverse history, millions of dollars worth of electricity needs to be thrown away, which is a hard sale. So what Bitcoin does is it makes it extremely expensive to reverse history, to roll back time. And so what Factom does is it takes the state of its system and then inserts it into the Bitcoin blockchain such that not even we can undetectably reverse history. But we've got a lot more scalability and the usability aspects to it. So, where's it going with this? So let's talk about how to use the software.
I have a question.
Sure.
Is this like, I'm kind of new to all this. Is this what you're about to show us? Is this an alternative to using Hyperledger, or is
Sure.
this? Okay, so it's kind of the same thing, only two
Well,
different flavors.
that's a good question. What is Hyperledger?
He knows, he's asking more theoretically.
You're asking me. I learned
Actually,
about it
I don't
today.
know.
You know, I mean,
So-
you know, it's my understanding that it's that they're providing a set of tools to interface with a public.
IBM, who is a subsidiary, or not a subsidiary, a participant in the Hyperledger overall umbrella project, who is one of dozens of companies who are combining many competing technologies. So the two blocks that he had up there, so he had the IBM and then these other companies you've never heard of.
Yeah,
So Blockstream has contributed some code from Bitcoin. You've got Digital Asset Holdings. That's the creator of the derivative. Is that right? Blythe Masters is this really smart woman on Wall Street. Found a legal loophole and invented. I want to say the thing that brought down the economy. She's now doing digital asset holdings, and blockchain is the next big thing. And it does solve a lot of banking problems and a lot of these coordination problems. And so she bought a company. She bought a couple companies. She bought Hyperledger. That was the name of the company, and then donated the name to the Linux Foundation. And so now that Hyperledger is the brand that they all go under. She bought Bits of Proof, and then donated that to the Hyperledger umbrella project, all under the Linux Foundation. There was another one up there, I forget who. But lots of people are contributing their own projects to Hyperledger. So there is no Hyperledger. There are projects under the Hyperledger umbrella.
okay.
Factom is a project, a company, and a distinct entity in and of itself in its own network. And so if Factom were under the Hyperledger umbrella, it wouldn't change much. And it could still be Hyperledger. But
Okay, not just another quick question. So as a developer, which is what I am, so from what I heard the IBM rep explaining, the Hyperledger, my concern is application to smart contract.
why do you want a smart contract?
I
Why don't we-
know.
why don't we-
I learned this
Excellent
just
question.
a couple days ago.
All right.
You know, the last few days I've been trying to understand everything. And, you know, from what they were explaining, we write the smart contract and go. And because like the tools aren't available yet for Java, so they're writing it in Golang.
Why don't we install the software so this gentleman can actually get started on his code?
I can help
And
him
then,
get set
oh,
up.
yeah, actually, that's a much better idea, because I love the theoretical stuff. Matt does this all day.
So what you have though is
So,
I have,
instead of using
Factom,
Go,
Factom
and instead of writing a smart
installed,
contract, I mean,
opened
where
up
is it that
two,
the difference is?
I guess shortcuts of it. So
between the
one was like a
Hyperledger,
client.
Scenario and what you're doing.
Okay.
It has to
And then I
be
also
different
have
from
Private.
this is
So
the
what you
very
do is
top.
private,
No.
I would assume.
Well,
There was another window that also was thinking about.
let's try to understand why are people excited about
Oh, sure.
blockchain technology.
Just Control C or do you want to?
Generally, it's because there's no middleman, there's no
Yeah.
guy in the middle to shut you down, to censor you.
It's peer-to-peer.
Peer-to-peer to a degree, but
Then
you
there
still
was
have
this window.
coalescence points in the network. And so the way Bitcoin does it, it makes those coalescent points people who, it makes them anonymous to join the network. But they have to burn lots of electricity and invest hundreds of millions of dollars worth of capital to buy computer hardware that does nothing but burn electricity in a specific way to be one of these authorities in the system. And they've got a vested interest in maintaining the properties, including censorship resistance. I tell people it takes about a year to understand Bitcoin, even if you're a technical person and you understand all the little base elements, because first you got the technology, and then you've got the economics, and then you've got the game theory, and then you realize that there's an entire programming language inside of every Bitcoin transaction. In Bitcoin, there are smart contracts, but they're dumb smart contracts. And in Ethereum, they're more sophisticated smart contracts. And then there's an entire, in Ethereum, there's a whole setup to deal with the arbitrariness of their smart contracts. And then, on top of that, it changes every month where new technologies are being developed, even inside the protocol itself. It's a moving target, very exciting. I learned about it last week.
So if I was gonna do a hello world using Factom,
Yeah.
you know, I wanna make a block with hello world. And maybe I wanna make the next block bye world. You know, what is my, what tools do I need? What am I writing and what am I coding in?
Okay.
Okay, so why don't I, give you a brief overview first, and then we'll go through and go through some of the tools. So what you do is you download the software onto your computer. It downloads the blockchain, very much like Bitcoin, and then it forms a peer-to-peer connection with the network. You then make an API call to a local daemon on your computer, which translates that RPC call to network language, and then broadcasts it out, and then flood fills across the network, and everyone on the network sees what you've done. And then you've got one of these authority nodes that places it into a block, and then
Stop for a second. Over TCP/IP?
Sure.
Okay, keep going. Sorry, I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't missing some elemental piece here. Okay.
And that goes over the internet. And the tricky thing about this is it's over a peer-to-peer network. So you're not talking with the server directly. Version 1 you are, but in version 2 it's a peer-to-peer network. So you are talking to just 8 random people. And they're talking to 8 random people. So they're talking to 8 random people. Are you familiar with the 6 Degrees of Freedom of Kevin Bacon? Anybody here?
I don't remember it.
Okay. So there was a study a few decades ago that tried to measure how interconnected the United States was. And so the idea was just a random person somewhere in the middle of the country is trying to reach some stockbroker over here in some country. And you could communicate by sending a letter from you to someone that you knew on a first name basis. And then you would mail it to them, and then because you would think that they knew that person more likely. And this researcher did a whole bunch of these studies and pretty much determined that these random people that he chose were on average 6 friends away from this total stranger. And this is how the peer-to-peer network operates. So
Very small, okay.
you make a transaction, you send it out to 8 friends, they send it out to 8 friends, they send it out to 8 friends. And then eventually, one of those friends is that server that then comes back and puts it into a block and broadcasts it.
Isn't that a lot of extra traffic?
So, hence the question, why are you using blockchain? Are you trying to maintain a global state?
I'm just wondering, like, I thought that it would be the certain members, not like random people. Like, if let's say we have a blockchain for commerce, and I'm selling widgets and you're buying widgets. So if you update the blockchain with, say, your inventory, and I know.
Why does the world need to know about that?
Yeah, why does the world need to know about that? Wouldn't that just be, wouldn't that be a private thing between the network of suppliers? Or is, I'm missing where it gets broadcast out the way, why wouldn't it just be routed?
Yeah, so they're very specific problems that blockchain solve. The ones where they really shine are coordination of parties that need to cooperate but don't trust each other.
Mhm.
So all Bitcoin users are, and who don't want a middleman. So they, different parties who don't trust each other, who don't want to coordinate with the middleman. So middleman is how most of the world coordinates today. So your Uber app, you don't know who this guy is who's picking you up in a car, but you know that Uber knows. And he's got his credit card on file and whatnot. And so if something goes south, then you can
I don't know how to
unroll that.
just do it by admin.
If you didn't want to have a middleman, so that middleman is imbued with powers. He can censor you. He can decide that
Right.
you're no good and you're out of the network. So what we ideally want is peer-to-peer logical operations. And so to do that, you need a peer-to-peer networking system so that you don't have a choke point on a technological level. So banks want to collaborate and work with each other, you don't trust each other. So they don't trust each other's ledgers. They trust their own stuff, which is fine. But if you wanted to buy some derivative, some asset, some package of mortgages from a CDOs, collateralized debt obligations. That's what she invented. If you wanted to buy a CDO from Goldman Sachs, or if Goldman Sachs wanted to buy one from some packager, they wanted to make sure that all the rules and procedures were followed. And so they could either trust their database,
I know,
or as the package is being pushed together, they collect all the documentation together to prove the negative. So this comes to one of the main things about blockchains, about why you would want to use a blockchain. To know that, to prove the negative. Any thoughts on that so far?
Yeah, that makes sense.
So the double spend problem in Bitcoin was a really hard problem that the cypherpunks were trying to solve in the late 90s. It's a way of using online digital cash in a world where copying digital information is trivial.
oh, it was under x86.
So it was a really hard problem. All the solutions that they've come up with in the for Bitcoin involved a trusted third party, like PayPal.
Yeah.
You don't know who that guy is in China, but you trust PayPal.
Yeah.
Have you been screwed by PayPal yet?
Okay.
No.
Okay.
No, PayPal's awesome.
It's very good for the consumer. For the seller, not so much. Did you get screwed?
No, but I know what you mean by the seller.
Yes.
Yeah.
There are lots of horror stories. But the point is, up until then, it was the centralized party. Because of this double spend problem, because we didn't have a way to prove that money has not been spent yet. So to prevent me from giving money to him and to you at the same time, doubling my economic value. And so what blockchains do is they make it such that everyone sees everything in the system. So if I give $5 to this gentleman, and then I try to give $5 to you later, then those same $5 will just say, whoa, those were already spent. That's against the rules. Because you know you won't be able to send it on to that guy.
Question, is there a way to do it like so it's an escrow where, like, let's say he hasn't done the $5 work yet, you've put the money up for him, but he hasn't finished the job. Is there a way to make that into the contract so it's, Like, you still can't spend it, but then it's released to him when
Yes.
he completes
It's
his
called
obligation.
multi-sig.
Called multi-sig?
Yep, multi-sig. So imagine, are you familiar with a checking account that has, that requires 2 people to sign a check? That can be done on every transaction. So right now, if you wanted to set that up if you want to set up a checking account that requires 2 signatures between you and a buyer, you and a seller, the overhead required for that is astronomical. If the overhead was 0, or close to 0, then now I can take some money, put it into a pot, and we both share the custody over that. And so it requires both of us agreeing to move that money out of that pot. And, or you can do 2 of 3, where you've got someone who's a disenfranchised third party who is an arbitrator. And so let's say I put up the money, he ships me the thing, and I forget about it. Well, that money's locked up forever. Because if I never sign it, then it's too late.
Okay.
It's just still sitting there.
It just sits there in the account. Now, he can go to the arbitrator and say, hey, this guy is not following through with the agreement. And the arbitrator can come away and say, hey, did you get the thing? And if I don't respond, then those 2 of the 3 people in the party can move the money. But most of the time, the arbitrator doesn't use the machine, only when there's disagreement. And so we've got two of the 3. So I received the goods and I want to forward the money. And 2 of us agree that the money is forwarded. So this is just straight up Bitcoin. There's no smart contract.
Now, what, okay.
So what a smart contract is going to try to do is this money that's in the center here, instead of having a human with intelligence, you encode the rules of moving the money out of the account into a machine understandable form. And so if this guy can then prove to the machine that some condition was met, then the money gets to be moved.
Is it done by sending a notification that the condition has been met? And then
It's cryptographically verified, so it needs to be a digital signature or generally digital signature. Maybe some other things. Sometimes it's a revealed secret. This is how Lightning Network works, and a lot of cross-chain swap protocols work. So if we lock up money, so if in the center of this pot I put, if we both agree, or if he knows this some secret, some preimage to a hash, some 32-byte number which hashes to something that's in the contract. So if he discovers by some mechanism that 32-byte number, he can then unilaterally pull the money out. And so there are protocols where I do something which reveals that secret number. And then if he can see that secret number in some public place, he can then unilaterally pull the money out.
is this done within the contract itself or
Sure.
outside the
Well,
contract?
the contract is the auditing code around that checks the signatures. And so,
It checks the signature and also, you know, hand over the money to the other.
so this is kind of what smart contracts is. So Ethereum makes the unlocking conditions arbitrarily complex. Hyperledger I don't know much about. Bitcoin, the unlocking conditions have to be very simplistic. Factom, there's no money. Factom is a document management system. That's basic. Now you could design a smart contracting system that lives on top of Factom, but that is not what Factom is.
Okay, so it's a document management system.
That's one of the ways I like to explain the system.
I don't know what the concept.
So,
Oh, yeah, okay, that's doing its way.
And this is how most wealth in the world is split. It's not bank accounts or things like that. It's you've got a record system that shows who owns what property. And so that's the third parties. So how do you know that you own your house?
well, the title from the bank, the deed from the bank.
Not the bank. So it's the county registrar, I guess, decide who owns what. Now, we use the government collectively because they're a large enough bureaucracy and essentially they don't have any self-interest in determining who gets to own something. Yes, we know that's not the case. But, they're the longest bureaucracy that we've got at this point. And ostensibly, everyone has some say over what's going on. So, all this is a registry. Down in Central America, they had this registry in Honduras, and they spent a whole lot of money to put it into a computer. Turns out computers are a lot easier to tamper with than pieces of paper.
Makes sense.
So some bureaucrats decided to grant themselves beachfront property.
Oh, yes, okay.
And there's basically no records. You have to completely implicitly trust their computer, their database of what it says. And there's no
No
argument.
journaling, no, yeah, you can't go back in time and say what happened.
So if you've got a system which is backed by the blockchain, so all these documents that you got for your purchase and sale, those all get compressed, not compressed, secured. You hash them all and put them into a chain and you timestamp. And so going back to that thermodynamic $1 million a day, you can't forge documents into the past. Because that would change the hash of the past, which would ripple forward and change everything. It'll yell at you like you get rebase. And so the software is automatically processed. And so not even national governments would be able to reverse history in blockchain without tons of uproar and extreme loss budgets.
They like to change history, that's gonna be,
So-
they're gonna actually pay for this?
So here's another one of my quips. Anybody familiar with George Orwell's 1984?
Yeah.
So one of the mottos of the antagonist was he who controls the past controls the future, he who controls the present controls the past. So what this means is whoever is in control of that database gets to change and update what those records say. And the definition of you owning your property is entirely dependent on what had happened in the past when about what that database has said. And so whoever controls that in the present gets to tamper with the past to affect what you can do with in the future. Okay. So by stopping tampering with the past. Okay. It closes off Orwell's techniques. And so now powerful people can arbitrarily change the future. Changing the facts.
Yeah, my next question is, and they're actually gonna pay you to do this. Because these are the same people that don't want accountability.
Goes on record and says, I want to be a dishonest person, and I want to be able to steal something.
Uh-huh.
So in a world of people who are operating in a network that, where their peers are operating in an trustworthy manner, you being the one guy there saying, you know what? I'm gonna leave the option of lying completely open. I'm not gonna lie, but no comment, please. That's a tough sell. So, I don't know, did we get enough of the software? So, let's talk about how to use Factom. So, Factom is do you wanna just talk about the base level stuff, Matt?
Sure.
Or have these guys gotten the memo, the briefing already?
I actually created stuff with
Okay.
him. I set up the environment for you to actually run. Should I use Factom CLI here, or is that going to get extremely boring? Because watching people play video games is boring. That's my wife, by the way, and kids. Okay, as a user, there's a whole lot of Factoms you don't care about. You don't care about consensus, you don't care about the admin blocks, or how the actual blockchain is made. What you care about is the entry where this is where you're putting data in, this is where you're taking data out. On a day-to-day basis, I deal with this stuff. He's way smarter than me. He deals with the hard, how to run a blockchain stuff. I just use the blockchain. These are the structures that you care about when you're using Factom Blockchain. As he likes to say, everything's application specific because it really does break down to a simple thing that you're building, and you get to pick what that is. So it's a blank piece of paper. You get to put what you want into it. I live at this level. It's the nuts and bolts, and I think this is the, for a user, important part. Everything you put in is an entry. It has external IDs, which are distinct values that you can match against, and it has content. What you choose to put in there is application specific. You're picking what you put in there. Entry blocks and directory blocks you may or may not care about or ever run into, because when you create an entry, you get an entry hash out of that. That is the key to your entry. You can find it at any time. For ease of use, you might want to write that down. You don't have to, as long as you have your chain. And I can step through creating all of this stuff as I did with him. I used the command line tool. There is a pretty much one-to-one relationship between the command line tool and what's available in the API calls. So if we're going through, okay, here's how you create a chain, here's how you put information into it, you'll be able to look over at the API calls and say, okay, add entry, get entry, make chain. So when we are using Factom, using the Factom blockchain, the first thing you need to do is make a chain. A chain is a pointer to all of the information that you're putting into this entry. You don't care that I'm putting in gold prices. It's completely irrelevant to you unless you want to look at the gold prices. If you're putting data into it, you make your own chain. Every entry has a chain ID, so your chain is reasonably important to you. You don't want to have to look at the entire blockchain to find what information you just put in there. By saying, give me my chain's information, it lets you ignore everything else in the blockchain and only look at your stuff. At some point in one of the future milestones, you're actually going to be able to not keep any chains that you don't care about, even on your hard drive. You'll keep the structure of it and then drop everything else that's not your chain. Him and the guys that work with him, I do, but on that part of it, we'll tell everybody when that's available. Right now, it's a future milestone goal. So, should I do Factom CLI and say this is how you make a chain. Watching video games is boring. Watching people do stuff on a command line is even more boring, but it is informative for what you need to do.
It made a lot of sense to me. And
But I was sitting next to you and telling you what to do, and you were doing it. So. I'm stealing your monitor, Brian.
Are you guys hearing all stuff?
It's gonna be a lot harder without a monitor.
You wanna, it's already set up to do that, right? I have my old, get my machine set up.
All right, yeah, all I need is that command line, so I can say, I can make a chain.
It's already run.
And you have a sandbox, right?
Yeah, the sandbox is set up, it's in the same state that it was. It's in the same state that it was.
I wasn't waving at you, I was
Oh,
waving at my daughter.
I think it's gonna speed up.
I turned the other one off. The other one was flashing, so.
Okay.
Oh, sorry. Should work. Did you turn it off? It was off. I didn't probably. That's not me. Do you have the environment set up?
No.
Okay. Do you want to help me set up the environment while I do other things? You want to?
Do you want to set up the environment?
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
And are you Windows or Linux or Apple? You're Apple.
And then we want to zoom. Alt and scroll.
Do you have this service in the cloud also, or it's just on the local machine?
It would be much more responsive to run it on your local machine.
So what we're gonna do right now is set up a local node that doesn't have to download the entire blockchain. You're gonna basically make your own server, so you don't have to deal with network latency, downloading gigabytes,
Slow block times.
slow block times, all the madness that is involved with using a public network. Because all you're trying to do now is write software, not interact with other people. And so you can test APIs, you can get a lot of faster feedback, you can, more instant gratification just by running the server locally. And if your APIs work, if your API calls work when you're the server, they will also work when your node is a follower and it's connecting to the network.
Okay. Understand.
And so the directions that you walk through with these guys. And on GitHub, there's a community developer sandbox setup. And then it basically walks you through how to take an installed Factom on your machine, convert it to the local server mode, and then get it all set up in order to start writing units on the system.
Is it under the Factom docs?
Yes.
Oh,
So scroll down. And then,
if you want to walk me
Developer
through that,
sandbox.
I can move to that side.
so why don't we watch Matt do, so we don't have to, once you get to,
Okay, how do I actually type on this?
keyboard.
Oh, okay, just don't touch the mouse. Okay, as I was saying, an entry is really all you're gonna wanna, need to work with on this, but you do have to have a chain. So the first thing you need to do, and there is an API call that is equivalent to everything I'm doing here, on the command line. First thing you need to do is make a chain, so.
You gotta run Factom D and FCT log.
Another terminal.
Sure, so up at the top you can do file and then new tab.
Alt F,
Sure.
or something else. Server. Important when you're running a sandbox server, look for those server mode notification right there. If you do not see that, there's a decent chance you're looking at production, where you probably don't have money, so it's not, and things aren't working. Always look for server mode. Every time I run this, I look for that line, so I know that I'm running my local sandbox. Does Alt Tab work to go between windows?
So what is the
Control tab.
documentation to start getting to these and run Factom D command?
We'll get through that, that's part of the set of directions. So the mouse should work, it just kinda is wonky.
It's set to a specific spot on the screen, so that's how it does work for you guys. I'm minimizing stuff, not closing it. There we
And then Alt and scroll.
go. And it's not on my screen.
It's two runners.
There we go. You'll want two things running. There's Factom D and also FCT Wallet. Factom D runs your blockchain, FCT Wallet signs things and deals with all of your private keys. Is zeros already loaded? Okay.
Actually, all the entry credits, this is the same setup from last.
Okay. Okay. After you've gone through the setup, you should be able to run Factom CLI. It's the command line interface that has an equivalent in the APIs that you'd use in your code. Do you get addresses? You'll know you're set up correctly because you see a sand, which is the sandbox Factom balance, and zeros, which is the private key for your entry credits. Sorry, that's your public address for entry credits. It's called zeros because that's 32 zeros as your key. I was like, oh, that makes sense now, why not? But anyway, that's why it's called zeros. If you're going to make entries, the first thing you need to do is make a chain. Chain entries will fail if you try to make them without a chain. The chain is really just the entry where you are creating your chain ID for the first time. So that would be Factom CLI make chain. I believe the API call and that is compose chain.
You gotta do a hackup first.
What do you mean?
It's a passive thing. Well, you might have another trick. It's basically just it takes standard data, so.
You mean, can I do just text in the bar, or do I have to do something else? I'm usually a Windows guy.
Do whatever you need to.
Will that
Oh,
work?
yeah, echo, it does need to be echo, yeah.
Echo that. Okay. That's, it's been a while.
He normally does it with scripts that abstract all this away and API too, so.
Is that gonna work? Or the space is gonna
need to
freak
be in
out?
quotes, yeah. Or just one word should work.
Okay. Now, in code, you have a place to put your content. Right here, I'm having to stream something into the content of this when I'm making the change. For Windows, I like to make another file and then use a less than to say stream this over. In the code, there's actually a spot, in the API call, there's actually a spot for your content. So, then it's Factom, CLI, make chain. Now, if you notice over there, there's external IDs in the contents. The first part of this echo, we took care of the contents. Now we need to add the external IDs. These can be anything you want. Your entry can be 1K, it can actually be up to 10K. So feel free to be as verbose or precise with your external IDs as you'd like. I generally have 3 to 5 external IDs. It has keys that I'm going to search for, or just it's application specific. You get to do what you would like with it. I'm starting to see why you use that term so much.
And this -E, this is just randomness.
Yeah,
It doesn't really matter.
-E is just strictly for this, the command line argument. When you are doing this for in code, it's actually a string array or a byte array. Byte array?
Just bytes.
Okay, it's an array of bytes. Shouldn't use that. I'm just gonna go with test chain. And then I do zeros as who's paying for it. Now this is actually talking to the FCT wallet, port 8089. If you see 8088 and 8089 in the API, it's because you are talking to 2 different APIs. This weekend, use both of those. You're not going to have time to write your own wallet or wallet interface or signing things. Just be aware that if it's not working, you might be looking at the wrong port. Check the documentation.
We also have some Python code. You guys, what language are you guys doing this in?
I think we're getting to Python.
He has much more Python than I do. I've been doing Java and .NET. Now, this is actually inserting the first chain into there. If anytime I'm referring to a chain in whatever I'm doing from now on, this chain is referred to by that hash.
So the mouse is right in the center.
Is it all right now?
Control-Shift-C. On the left.
You don't want to copy it, Control-Shift-C?
Yeah, in the terminal. You sent the Control-C command.
Yeah, but that works still. Okay. You're saying it's not in memory there?
Oh, yeah.
All right, again, I'm usually Windows, so if this is a little bit cumbersome, sorry for my presentation. Now, I want to make sure that this chain is in there just for my own personal gratification. If it's not in there, I didn't have any entry credits on zeros or something like that, it is possible it wouldn't be there. There is a command, API called get, I believe it's chain or chain head. And what will come back on this is actually an entry block, not an entry. If I had a bunch of entries during this block onto our blockchain, there would be many of these. Since I've only made one entry, this is the entry hash to that. Anytime you say get the chain head, you're actually going to get an entry block, which will have every hash that's in your chain available to it. And then you would want to pull each of those entry hashes to get the entry itself. That took me at least a day to figure out what I was looking at the first time I was going through this stuff. I kept expecting the newest entry. You don't get the newest entry. You get everything in the newest block that chain is talked to. So you'll get a list of entry hashes, and then I'll come back. This is an array of entry hashes. This is the information that you're probably looking for each call pull chain head. Again, when creating a chain is distinct, I'm going to create an entry next, and what that will return is your entry hash. So if you write that entry hash down, you can directly pull that entry out of the blockchain without having to worry about it. So as you're making entries into the blockchain, if you have a local database that you're dealing with, go ahead and store those entry hashes. It's much more usable than having to dig through, grab the whole block, dig through your entries to try to find what you need. You certainly can do that, depending, it's application specific. If you want to be able to go directly to the entry hash, write that down. Now that we have a chain, and it's in my buffer, I'm going to create the first entry. That's my
C-test.
UCLI. For this command line, it's put. It is commit entry in the API. So put, I need to do external IDs also. You can have, again, as many as you want. I need to echo my content in again. On the API call, there's an actual variable that you can put it into. I haven't done it. And then important, anytime you're putting an entry in, there's two ways to do it. Make chain, commit entry. If you're making an entry, you have to tell it what the chain is. Again, in the API call, there's a spot for it. On the command line, it's -C. Part of the reason to go through this is it's a very useful tool to see if what you put in is actually what you think you put in. So use this, not necessarily for your programming, but use this to verify that what you think you just put into the blockchain in your code, you actually put in there. And then the chain ID I've already got in memory. And I forgot zeros. Who's paying for it? Now, it's creating entry. This hash right there is your entry hash. If you want to go directly to this entry in the future, you'll say get entry and list this. If you have to go from your chain head, if you have no control over what's going in, your application's putting things in, and you want to say give me the newest entry, again, chain head will get you the entry block. We'll have a list of those hashes. This could be adding blocks. It probably has a 1-minute block. I could wait 10 minutes. I don't have any entries in here, so I say get chain head. It's going to give me the block that has my stuff in it. It's going to ignore everything else. It's going to give my entry block, or the newest entry block that has an entry from my chain. So I go back to get chain head. And if you'll notice, that entry hash right there is the entry hash that I inserted a moment ago. The other one is not in there. If I look right here, here's my chain ID that I just asked for. Previous key MR, that is, I'm verifying here, the last block that I had something in, right?
Yeah.
So I could have 1,000,000 blocks in the blockchain. If I made 2 entries, previous key MR is the entry block ID of the last one that I interacted with. So if there's 10 blocks and I have something in number 2 and number 8, this is number 8, and that's a pointer to number 2. So I can follow just my information through the blockchain and not worry about anybody else's stuff, worry about any digging through blocks that I don't care about. That is a chain-specific list. Instead of having to deal through the whole blockchain, I just go for, I'm in this block, I'm in this block, I'm in this block, and you can skip directly to the blocks you actually care about. Again, Brian likes to use, and I'm starting to use even more, everything's application-specific. That's just the very basic thing of how you do an entry, how you get back at an entry. The API calls and the API documentation are very close to one-to-one to what I just did. Make a chain, get the chain head, make an entry. There is a get entry, which if I give it this, will actually give me, we'll do that. And play with my mouse again. Tell me when you see it. Also have a window glare. Okay. Okay. Get entry. There's an API call that says get entry. I have my entry hash. That is my chain ID. Where's the mouse? Let's do a chain ID. What did you say? Shift control?
Control Shift C.
Control Shift V work also?
Yes.
Okay, that is my entry hash. So if I save that from before, if I saved it, I don't have to get my chain heads and dig around looking for my entry hash. I put it in my local database or whatever application specific thing I did. So that's get entry. There is a get entry API call. Now, if you remember when I made this entry, I told it what chain to use. This is external ID 1, external ID 2, external ID 3. Those were the -E's that I did on the command line when I was inserting this. And this says test entry. I've cut it off a little bit. This is what I said before echo, or what I could put it into a file. This is the content of that entry. This is where this program becomes really useful, because you can say, show me what I just put into this entry. Again, hated using this thing at first. Now I love it. It's one of my favorite pieces of tools in here is Factom CLI, or yeah, Factom CLI. So again, this is what an entry looked like. There's a chain ID, there's your external ID, there's your content. All entries are on a chain. There's your external IDs, there's your content. Whatever you want to put into these things, you can put into these things. Again, it's application specific. We have, if you need help, suggestions, whatever else, it's always nice to sign stuff so people can't redo your entries after the fact. It's always, I generally use one of the external IDs, I'll sign the content, and I'll put it into an external ID. As an extra case, I always put time in here, so it's something unique that I will be signing, so nobody can grab a transaction that I've done in the past and replay it, but we're getting way off into the weeds, I believe, at this point, if I'm not already into the weeds already. But basically, I've stepped through, I've done an entry, which is really the core of what this is. It's a bunch of entries that you pair on a blockchain that exist outside of your control that you can verify against. If you have an image or a legal document or something else, you can hash it, put it into the content. If there's any time in the future, you can prove that that document you had at that time. You can put it in an external ID if you would like. Again, it's all application specific. Generally, or the last implementation I did, I took images. I would take the hash of an image and put it in the content. I could come back in later, because I was saving the entry hash on these. I could come back and say, I have an image. It should match this entry. I would go grab the entry, look into the content of the entry and say, does the hash of this match the hash of the document that I have in my hand? Yes. So I just verified from outside of my application that this was true and this is the document that I should have. So inside my database, yes, it does, or yes, everything looks great. if somebody nefarious came in and changed the database so everything looked great, it would fail against the external, the Factom blockchain at that point. That's really kind of cool if you think about it, you know, level or what you can do with that. But really, you can do anything that, say it's up to a 10K entry. Really, the sky's the limit. And tomorrow you'll think about something new that you didn't consider today, and that's why it takes a year to really know Bitcoin, because every day you're thinking, oh, I didn't know that, or oh, I can do this with it, or oh, it always gets deeper. So I pretty much rambled as far as I'm gonna ramble. Brian, do you have anything you'd like to add?
I could ramble for hours, so. But I won't.
Okay. And let's hope you get set up with your sandbox.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Is there anything Mac specific that I should be aware of?
I don't know, I don't use Linux.
So I'm from Windows and Linux, so I have Linux issues.
But the directions are pretty straightforward on the Factom.com website. Some of the oddities are yet to.
Have you installed it? Okay, first go to, very first go to.
You made it so easy to understand. Thank you so much.
Oh. Take about a year to understand.
There's so many years in.
But thank you, thank you.
Okay, download one. So you want to go ahead and install the Mac. And that will put on, that will give you the trust blockchain. FCT wallet, which is your signatures. That program that I was using, FMCLI, will also do GUI wallet. You can't run the GUI wallet and the FCT wallet at the same time. Next version, you're probably going to be able to, right now, we'll find out those different. Signature. Brian, can you take over from there? I've really got. Yeah, as soon as you run those, you edit it in big document.
So, okay, good. Good. Okay. One of the things that you might need to do is lower your security. Remember that was problems. But the directions. But, go ahead.
Yeah, download. What is next?
Okay, so let's go back to, let's see if we can run it. So let's go to Factom.com. Let's see. Try to use your factoids. Let's see if that's. Okay, so one of these documents walks you through how to run it. Let's start off with that. to the, to so let's scroll down to our developer sandbox. Okay, good. So, let's scroll down a little bit. Bigger that can be for sandbox use. So, leave that.
to follow the rest of these instructions.
And so the next thing you'd like to do is do that same procedure for city law.
Yeah, okay, for the one, okay. Yeah, I can just go through all these expression and everything.
So for these ones, you're probably gonna have to put the /Factom CLI.
Okay. I can always run the. So is apart from this document, this page, or which other page?
So this is what you set up and started. So go back to the Factom, the Factom docs. There's another one called Factoid API, and this will walk you through. It's kind of going to work like API. So the one you're going to want to look at is called commit entry. So this, and then you're going to want to review entry. So commit entry and review entry. It's a two-stage process. So first you have to
So are these just command line APIs or do you have REST APIs?
right. This is using curl to show you how to use the REST API.
REST APIs, okay.
And so if you can make REST API calls in the program, I'll just make these as identical calls.
And if I create, so is the smart contract for Factom written in Go also?
There are no smart contracts in Factom.
No smart contract. So what do you use to put data into the blockchain?
So smart contracts implies that the server is, let's back up a couple steps. So a contract is an agreement between two people to disallow them from doing things. So a smart contract is a way to have two people enter into an agreement that disallows each other from doing something.
Okay.
And so you can put some money up and the contract disallows either party from removing that money without having some execution. Now, what Factom does is it's a publishing platform. And it's all client-side driven. So if you create some a program that writes data into the system, other people who are running similar programs can download that data and rederive the state that you were trying to build.
Oh. So all the documentation is right here.
So, yeah, this is for the API. I've got a Python example program in here. So if you go back to Factom, Pioneer right now, and then go to the testing, examples, Python, and then write Factom chain, write Factom entry.
to use two different slides before. Two different slides, that deck, you have these two decks. Yeah, can you share with us?
One of them is online already. What do you mean by share? Just document or?
Like if I can have this
The
presentations.
one of them is the blockchain training conference in
So, probably is best if you're on this kind of side
Okay.
here, because we'll be using this TV.
Sweet. I wanna handle the glare, you know?
All right.
Or combat the glare.
Hopefully connecting is not an issue. Let's see. Did you find it all right? Were there
Yeah.
people down by the elevator?
I saw two individuals outside, and I think, they were following me to the side that's open, because all the other doors are locked on the weekend.
Right, yeah.
The hotel entrance is open.
Mhm.
It's the Wi-Fi Capital Factory guest.
Yeah, that's right.
Do you know what the password is?
I believe the password is keep Austin hacking. Pretty sure.
All lowercase.
Yeah. To double check that for you in a second.
Pretty legit shirt you got there.
Oh,
I like it.
Yeah, my super cool horses. Yeah, there was a group in here before me, so I didn't have time to really fool.
Yeah.
So this is the classroom.
Yes.
I'm connected to it on AirPlay.
Let me check our IT guy.
Cool, thank you. Oh, that was just one of the inputs on here. TVs are always fun.
I know, the trials and tribulations of
Yeah.
hooking up to a projection screen.
Yeah. Were you able to get on the Wi-Fi?
No, I wasn't.
Let me see what that password is for you. Yeah, Capital Factory and then keep Austin
Okay,
hacking,
yeah, I
all
was
one word.
the guest
Ah,
ID.